Hello, once again. My name is Lizeth COF, as you've already heard. I'll start off by saying that high school and college students are oblivious to the negative effects of nicotine and tobacco. High school and college students are oblivious to the negative effects of nicotine and tobacco that have on our minds and bodies. The pleasure or relief that comes from the use of these drugs are not worth what we lose in exchange. Therefore, young adults need to stop smoking. Nicotine has become a trend among young adults in the US and is increasing the number of deaths and diseases in America. Students in high school and college have normalized the use of nicotine through electronic cigarettes, which have now led them to addiction and potential death. The National Institute of Drug Abuse for Teens say, quote, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, cigarettes can cause more than 480,000 premature deaths in the United States each year from smoking or exposure to secondhand smoke. About 1 in every 5 US deaths, or 1,300 deaths every day, unquote. Who here knows what a Soren or a Juul is? Okay. Clearly, it is very common in the college culture. There are many teens that are consuming this drug, though, through e-cigarettes, regular cigarettes, hookahs, and water pipes, a bunch of stuff like that. The use of nicotine and smoking has also increased the depression and anxiety among young adults. Quote, teen smokers are more likely to have panic attacks, anxiety disorders, and depression, unquote. Teen smokers are turning to e-cigarettes because they believe smoking tobacco through these type of electronic devices is not as bad, or it's a much better way to do it, when really it's just as bad or even worse. This is important because about 30% of teen smokers will continue smoking and die early from smoking-related diseases. It also states that tobacco is the leading cause of preventable death in the United States, meaning that these drugs aren't necessary for day-to-day life, but young adults don't let go of them and usually continue living their lives as smokers. And it's preventable because this is not a drug that will ever become a need to anyone, unless you're addicted. Have you heard people say, like, don't be dumb and smoke, or anything by like calling someone dumb? Okay, well, that statement should not be ignored because UCLA has studies that have proven that there is a lack of effectiveness in our brains once we are adapted to the use of nicotine. Young smokers lose the ability to think, process, and make decisions to the best of their abilities. It basically means that their brains have begun to suffer from the nicotine, and there are parts of it that are affected from the first hit and so on. It only gets worse. Like I said before, young adults, mainly in high school and college, need to stop normalizing the use of nicotine because it will affect their abilities to think, feel, and efficiently live their daily working lives. The pleasure or relief that comes from the use of tobacco and nicotine is not worth what we lose in exchange, and young adults need to put a stop to the use of tobacco and nicotine before we die and lose any chance to make a change. Thank you.
All right, well, the proposition's a little bit vague. It almost sounds like a policy proposition that we have to do something. The argument is conflating e-cigarettes and tobacco products as if they are the same and have the same impact, and I think you need to demonstrate that that's the case. I think that's one of the things that the tobacco companies that produce e-cigarettes are suggesting, is that they are relatively safe because they don't have the same kinds of chemical components that traditional tobacco has. The one chemical component that they do have in common is nicotine, and so what you need to do is you need to demonstrate that nicotine is the source of that 400,000 deaths annually, the 1/5 of the deaths that occur in the country every year, and that's the thing that's causing the harm, as opposed to the things that are missing in these electronic cigarettes or the water pipes or any of those kinds of things. I didn't get a preview of what the main structure was going to be. There's not a very clear, I couldn't tell you what the structure of the speech was. It just seemed like there were random pieces of information that were being dropped in. The idea that this is being normalized is mostly asserted because everybody knows what these things are. That doesn't necessarily prove that they are using those kinds of things or that they think that tobacco smoking is safe. And I think you need to show that there is a trend that we have an increase. Where's the statistical information about how many more people are using these electronic products, and then as a consequence, how many more of them are using traditional tobacco? I think that's where the argument needs to be developed, because that's the direction in which there is some controversy. Are the tobacco companies, for instance, using these electronic cigarettes as a way to normalize smoking behavior and then allowing traditional tobacco to substitute for that as people seek a stronger reaction, flavor, taste, relief, whatever the heck it is that they get from the cigarettes, and then they discover that they're already addicted to the nicotine, so they might as well have it in its purer form. I don't know. Maybe that's the argument that's being made. I think that's the argument that's possible to make here, but that's not the argument that you're making. I don't think there's any dispute that tobacco product consumption is dangerous. Nobody denies that anymore. So that's not where the argument is. The argument is have electronic cigarettes normalize tobacco use, and as a consequence, as tobacco use increased. I don't see any statistical information. I don't hear any authorities saying that. I hear you assert that a couple of places, but I don't hear any evidence that supports those positions. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got to stop here because we've got stuff to do, and I